My name is Andrew. I've attended every cross conference since 2013 when it started. When I first attended Cross, both in 2013 and in 2015, I was convinced that God was calling me to be a goer. So much so, I approached my church leadership and then began going on short-term trips with the goal of finding where God would have us move to. I thought it was Indonesia. And it was on my third trip to Indonesia that I began to realize I don't think God has called me to go. Going's a good thing. That doesn't mean God's called everybody to it. After we went to Indonesia one trip, I went to Myanmar. And it was in Myanmar that I began to realize, reflecting on everywhere I've traveled, is that every place I had visited, whether it was in the inner city or out in the rural areas 12 hours from a nearby city, I was meeting local Christians. There were Christians already there, Indonesian Christians, Burmese Christians, depending on the country I was in, taking the gospel to unreached people groups. There was one thing that really grabbed my attention and humbled me in my pride of wanting to go. It was at the end of my trip in Myanmar. My Burmese friends came to me and gave me a gift. It was traditional Burmese clothing. And it was the ankle-length man dress, the sarong, and they had me try it on, and I thought it was really cool. I'm dressing like one of the locals. And then they said, "Let me explain to you what you're wearing." And this patterned fabric, just woven together patterns, each thread held a meaning. They said, this stripe represents this tribe, this stripe represents this marriage, this one represents a peace deal, this little thread here represents this conflict. And what I was holding that at first I thought was such a cool thing suddenly began to terrify me. Because they went on and said, well, if you wore this to this area, they would welcome you. If you wore it to this tribe, they would view it as an act of aggression. This one, it could start a war. And I realized that I have no understanding of the culture that I'm standing in. And so later on in our conversation, I asked them, how could I help? By this part in the trip, I had seen an orphanage run by Burmese believers. I had witnessed a seminary run by Burmese believers, teaching Burmese believers to take the gospel to unreached Burmese people groups and plant churches where there are no churches. And I had witnessed a children's school run by Burmese Christians, bringing in mostly non-believing children from Hindu homes, Buddhist homes, even Muslim homes. They're teaching them the gospel. They're learning Bible verses. And so when I asked, how could we help? I thought for sure they would say, why don't you come teach with us? Or why don't you come join our staff here, join our team here? But they didn't. Instead, what they said was, could you get us good Christian books? I'm like, well, yeah, but not in Burmese. I'm like, no. We want them in English. Because there's so few resources translated in Burmese or Chin or one of their other native tongues. But if we teach them how to read English, the whole world's opened up to you for continued education. They said, we teach every student how to read English. We're just looking for Christian books in English. We can't buy them here in our own country. In my mind, it just flashed the fact that we swim in books here. Our libraries are covered with books filled with dust that we never read. That's what they're asking for. Sure, I could help. We did, and it was on the flight home that I realized that perhaps my greatest asset to seeing the nations reached with the gospel was not going, but strategically sending. Not just strategically sending, but strategically equipping and resourcing national partners. Well, we define a partner as a national-born, indigenous believer, someone who's reaching their own community with the gospel. These are people who don't need to learn the language because they know the language. They don't need to learn the culture because they grew up in it. They don't need to take furloughs because they're already home. They don't have to worry about visas and immigration because they're guaranteed access to their own people. They can't be kicked out of their country. They understand some of the nuances in culture that even a seasoned missionary may never understand. We seek out those people to help equip them. But not just any believer. We look for believers who have a proven track record. Not just those who say they want to do ministry, but those who are actively doing ministry. Those who are seeking to move the needle in their own country. And then we look for ways to strategically come alongside them. But really, when we talk about partnership, what we're talking about is relationship. Because most people, when they hear that, think like, oh, you just write a check, you give them money, you give them books, you give them something. Actually, it always starts off as a friendship. Much like my sending church had confidence to commission me and send me as a missionary because they knew me. We have confidence to work alongside these brothers and sisters because we know them. We spend years getting to know them, getting to know their ministry, watching their joys and their struggles and hurts along the way, praying with them. And then when we're invited, we get involved. Well, it depends. It depends on the relationship. It depends on the need. It depends on how we're invited to get involved. Sometimes we're invited to come help teach. In places like Nepal, the average pastor has 1 to 2 days worth of training. They can't afford seminary. The church is growing so quickly, they need qualified teachers. So we help equip because we're invited to. In other countries, the gospel's been there for decades or even generations, and they don't need qualified teachers as much as they need strategic resources to help them as they engage lost people around them. One of my favorite stories of partnerships was there's a group of islands in Bangladesh. This group of islands had chased off or killed any missionary who had attempted to go to them with the gospel. There's a local Bangladesh believer that God put a vision in his heart. And he wanted to see these islands reached with the gospel. So what he did was he began to pray about it and study, and he began to realize that these islands, the thing they want most is an education. They can't get it because they're so remote. They can't get books or resources because they're so remote. And so he had an idea, a bold idea. He got a boat and he got a bunch of books. And he floated up to the first island and said, hey guys, I'm your new mobile floating library. For free, check out any book. Just bring it back. I'll be back in a week. Bring it back and you can get a new one. The second day is second island. Third day, third island. 6 days, 6 islands, rinse and repeat. About a month in, people began to come to him and said, we have 2 questions. First, why are you doing this? And second, we've been reading some things we don't understand. Could you explain them to us? We knew this man. One of our team members had a long-standing relationship with him. And he was several months into this when we were talking with him. He said, what are you praying for now? He said, well, I've trained someone to take over my current book route. I'm praying that God gives me money so I can buy another boat and more books because there's another set of islands we can reach. And his prayers were answered. Strategic involvement for the advancement of the gospel. It's helping purchase Bibles so that as believers advance into unreached areas, they can give the word of God out. It's helping translate gospel material into languages that have never had a single verse of the Bible translated into them. Partnership looks different based on the relationship, but it's this collaborative, strategic effort to see the gospel go where Christ is not yet named, and to see churches strengthened where only weak churches exist, and to help strong churches strategically think about how to reach unreached areas around them. I was in Cuba a few months ago and meeting with Cuban believers there, and their main request was, can you help us think through how to send Cuban believers to unreached countries and unreached people groups around us? And as we're talking about the importance of doctrine and the importance of the local church. One of my Cuban brothers offhandedly said, did you know that we don't need a visa to get into North Korea? I said, what? He said, yeah, our governments are both socialist governments. They get along great. We actually, all you need is a Cuban passport and you can get into North Korea, no questions asked. Really? Do you have hopes to send a missionary there? He's like, we're praying for it. And with the Cuban system there, they have people looking to learn Korean so that they can go, they know the language already. And they're much closer to the North Korean culture than we as Americans ever are, would ever hope to even get in. Any gift or any degree that you've been given can be used. We're not looking for just church planners. We're looking, the need is so great that we need software engineers to use their talents and their degrees for the advancement of the gospel. Videographers, social media experts using their talents. Content writers who are helping us write content, or SEO experts who are getting material into countries we physically can't get people into. We've launched apps that are oral reading apps with the gospel in them that are being used in countries that you can't physically get a missionary into, and they have no written language. Technology has been a strategic opportunity for us because 90% of the world's population has access to the internet. Even in the poorest slums I've been in, people have smartphones. It's incredible the opportunity that technology gives us for the gospel. But not just that. The need for medical teams, the need for education, the need for solid, biblical-minded teachers and professors, for pastors. Pursue what God has gifted you with and seek to use that for the Great Commission. So my advice to anyone looking to get involved in missions would be this, is first, don't think too highly of yourself that you're the linchpin God needs. Realize that God is calling everyone and he's already working across the nations. But he's uniquely gifted you for the Great Commission. So seek how to use that to get involved. If we could help you, I lead an organization called Live Global. And we do just this. We seek to connect North Americans with their giftings into an international context where they can partner with national believers to see the gospel advance. This is people who go. This is people who serve from the States, whether it's anything from using Zoom to teach people in closed countries to using your gifts in creative ways to advance the church. We have opportunities for you to give in ways that are meaningful to advance the gospel. We also seek to leverage everyone, to invite everyone into the great story of what God is doing. You have a part to play. But my greatest encouragement to you would be to seek to grow deeper with God as you grow deeper with your skill set. Never let your gifting outpursue your growth in holiness. Seek to grow deeper in God, deeper in his word, and be open to him to however he would use you for the Great Commission. If you have questions or we can help, you can visit us at liveglobal.org. God bless you.